Okay, good morning. So, Reish Peches, very interesting simon, which deals with Tanis Chaloim on Shabbos, that a person has summers if you want to fast on Shabbos, and then second of all, if you have a bad dream, whether you can fast on Shabbos and how you go about it. Very, very interesting. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Also lehisanis b'Shabbos. Generally speaking, you're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. Ad sheishois. You're allowed to not eat in the morning, but longer than 6 hours into the day, which is sort of chatzos time. Even if you're just sitting and learning, that's not allowed. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ad sheishois v'gam b'chol, and also in the weekday, ha'eichel acha sheishois, if you eat sort of in the afternoon or later in the day, have a kazorek even lechemes. It's as if you're throwing a stone into a barrel. There's no point. You need to. It gives you energy, and when the day's passed, what's the point? Alkein nikra k'moitanis b'Shabbos, and therefore eating only much later after that, there's no point, and therefore it's considered like fasting. Well, the shem tan is afilu shoachas also. So in other words, if you don't eat in the morning because you're busy in shul and whatever, and the shul schleps out. So then, if that delays till after chatzos, till after the 6th hour, that's considered the tanis, and it's a problem. But if you even fast for 1 hour, even before that, that's also a problem, because you shouldn't fast on Shabbos. So that's what it means. Afilu shoachas is also. So l'shem tanis. V'alkein shelo kadin osin mixas kehillas shemis'anim b'Shabbos, and therefore it's wrong that some kehillas do that they fast on Shabbos at somach lechatzos. Al Gezeres. They're worried about certain decrees, and therefore they decree a fast on Shabbos. That is not kahalacha. Ve'imtoim midi kodim tfilas musaf mutalis acha yosem misheishas. And if you had something to eat before musaf, if it's musaf which is schlepped out and it takes you after 6 hours, that would be okay. Now the question is, let's say you go to a shul and it goes till 11:30, 12 o'clock. Chatzos is early nowadays in the winter. Chatzos is about 11:45 So Chatzos is 11:45 p.m. a.m. So in the winter. So that means by the time you go to shul Shabbos morning and you walk home and you pop into a kiddush and just say Mazel Tov and then you get home, it can be 12:30. That's well after Chatzos. So how does that work? So if having a coffee beforehand, is that okay? Oh yeah. So I've got the nod over there in the corner, but that is confirmed if you look at footnote 3. So the team azu. Histapik aprima godim im dai b'shachris mashke. Sorry, what was that? Sorry. Dai b'shtias mashke. I should sorry. I should sorry leachol davka pas. Now the shaila is what's enough to eat in the morning? Is it enough b'shtias mashke or should sorry leachol davka pas? Or cheshir shabetza. V'akseis hashulchan kosev she'after das aprima godim v'ad shtias mayim ein b'chatzina. To have just a glass of water. The Chaim, he says, is not enough. Aval Matzah Ephraim says, "Shebeshas hatchak afilu shasa rak kamayim kva yotz michlal tanis b'Shabbos." So even just having a glass of water, l'chayr will be enough. V'orach hashulchan kosev shafilu shoyse chamin kodim atfila yotz michlal tanis. So therefore, having a coffee, a cup of lemon tea, whatever it is, before Shachris on Shabbos morning, which is thing, that's considered enough, and therefore you haven't got a problem of tanis. So again, like you say, you shouldn't fast even for an hour on Shabbos l'shem tanis, and certainly not till after chatzos. And therefore, if you go to a main minyan on Shabbos morning, otherwise it could be a problem. So having a coffee or a drink at some point in the morning before that would be okay. All right, mispalel asa. Then we said vafilu loy meidu mispalel is asa. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Base. We're in Reish Peches Sif Cotton Base. Well, afizeh hashliach tzibur shemenagin. Here you go. A shliach tzibur who's a chazan who's singing, and he's going on a bit, and it's prolonging till after chatzos. That's not correct. Of a prat b'chayrev shayom katzarim, like we just said, chatzos at the moment, like I said, is about 11:50 or so. It's before midday. Well, mikol shekain b'yontov, and certainly on yontov milvad b'Rosh Hashanah, apart from Rosh Hashanah, where that has different considerations. Of Eli Rabbah, he says in one of the footnotes on Rosh Hashanah, he says that if it's for piyutim and tefillas, you're being ma'arich, that's okay. But if it's stam singing, then not. That's what he says in one of the footnotes. Of Eli Rabbah motzah smach lehakel beloimed mispal la'ach ezach chatzos. Of Vigdei Yesh shel Mordechai. Okay, so generally you're not allowed to fast on Shabbos, even for a short time, and certainly not till after Chatzos. And having a drink in the morning, that would overcome the problem. Sif base. Yesh omrim she'od m'shem mazik lo achila. If a person he's not an eater, and therefore eating actually damages him. The oz oineg hu shelo lechel. His oineg Shabbos is not to eat. So then lo yechel, he doesn't have to eat. V'chei mi sheyesh lo oineg im yivke. He finds it therapeutic to cry, and that sort of takes away the pain from his heart. Mutar lichbeis b'Shabbos, he would be allowed to do so. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Gimel lo yechel. V'kimat karov l'issa ha'achila. And a person who's it's injurious to him to eat, actually it's probably also for him to eat. If he estimates that having that bowl of chulent is going to be bad news for him, so then he shouldn't eat. Even if the kazayas is difficult for him to eat, when a person wants to cry to get rid of the pain in his heart, he's crying for lofty spiritual reasons. Rabbi Kiva says the Zohar would cry a lot when he would say Shir Hashirim, because he knew how deep. In fact, it was Rabbi Kiva who says that all the Sfarim are Kodesh and Shir Hashirim is Kodesh Kedoshim. So he understood better than anybody else what the depth of Shir Hashirim. And someone who davens b'kavona he can sometimes get very emotional and cry. But stam to cry, we're not talking about that. But there actually, the Eli Rabbah and the Tosefes Shabbos say no, they actually stam crying, if that helps you, he will benefit from it. Okay, Gimel. Adam says in Mechaber, Adam ha-misana b'chol yom, a person who just generally fasts every day, he's just not an eater and he just fasts every day. And all of a sudden on Shabbos he has a totally different diet. There's a lot of food and it's very difficult for him. In other words, it changes his regular habits. For them, eating is very difficult and therefore they can avoid it. Interesting. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that would be also. Interesting, what would happen if a person has a yard site that fell on Shabbos? Last Shabbos had a yard site. So even though the minhag is in many places to fast on a yard site, not when it falls on Shabbos. He actually says that in footnote 9. Now the Mechaber says that if it falls on a Shabbos, you can't fast on a Shabbos, but push it off to a different day. But then he says, and certainly the minhag Ashkenaz is not to fast at all. You don't make a substitute tanis, which I was very relieved to see. Okay, Dalet. Now we come to Atanis Chaloim. Let's try and do Dalet and Hey. Very interesting halachas. Mutar lehisanas by Tanis Chaloim. You are allowed to fast on Shabbos if you had a bad dream. Kadesha Yikar Gazar Din, thereby that will annul and will rip up the Gazar Din. V'tzarich lehisanas b'yom rishon Kadesha Yischapel Mashabitul Enik Shabbos. But then you got to fast because you fasted. Because you didn't eat on Shabbos. In other words, you had a bad dream Friday night, and the way to annul that dream, we'll talk about halacha l'maisa today, but the way to sort of be kareir the gzar din is to fast on Shabbos. But you fasted on Shabbos, you didn't have any Shabbos, so therefore you got to fast another day to make up for the fast. So it comes out you're fasting 2 days. You're fasting Shabbos and you're fasting Sunday. And it's very difficult for you to fast 2 days in a row. Lo yisana b'yom rishon v'yisana achkach. Then you push it off for another day. For kolshkein mo'eh b'yom rishon Chanukah, and if the Sunday actually is a day where you shouldn't fast, for example, it's Chanukah, Rosh Chodesh, or Purim, or Yontif, afili Yontif she'en shel Golios, she'en lisanas adachkach. You shouldn't fast on that Sunday, and you should push it off and to a later time. Yesh omrim, misha yoshen she'ena sarayim. You have a shluv on Shabbos afternoon, v'cholam lechalim ra, and you have a bad dream, you have a nightmare on Shabbos afternoon, yisane mechatzi hayom v'chatzi halayla v'oz yavdil. You fast from when you wake up until halfway through the night, v'oz yavdil, and then you make havdalah. V'yom rishon yisane ki'ilu hisane kol yom Shabbos, and then you have to still fast on Sunday as if you fasted the whole of Shabbos. Okay, let's take a look. Dalet. Mutzah lehisanis. Now, what if you didn't have a bad dream, but your friend had a bad dream? He came to Shul Shabbos morning, and he said, "Oh boy, did I have a bad dream about you last night?" So then what? So, im chaver ra'alav chalom ra b'Shabbos for Sipel, and he told him, which is not always the wisest thing to do, lo yis'aneh, you don't have to fast. Aval im eira kain b'chol yis'aneh. But if it happened on the weekday, he came to Shul Sunday morning and said he had a bad dream about you, then you fast. Knesset Agdolah in the Mishnah Berurah, etc. V'ayin le'el b'simen reish chaf b'Magen Avraham sif kotzen beis. If you have a bad dream about somebody else, then you fast for the benefit of that person. Which implies that on a weekday you would the choleim does fast. Maybe there he doesn't want to tell you because he doesn't want to cause you any distress. Okay, so generally speaking, if somebody has a bad dream about you, then on Shabbos you shouldn't fast. On the weekday you can. Tanis chaloim. So you want to have a fast on Shabbos, but don't waste your day. But you should spend the day, pass the day with Torah and with Tefillah. And that's there's a kapara, and it will annul the bad effect of the fast, of the dream. Even though on Shabbos, it's not a time for doing vidui and things like that, but here it's okay. If you look at interestingly, pregnant women and feeding mothers should not be fasting even on a weekday. Rather they should give some money to tzedakah of a prat certainly if they're weak. If you were thinking during the day, about pink elephants, and then you were crushed in a dream by a pink elephant, everyone's going to be dreaming about pink elephants tonight. In that situation, you don't have to fast. Why? Because if you're thinking about it during the day, then that you don't have to worry about it. The hero garams there because it's your thought process during the day. V'lo hero min hashamayim. It's not a siman min hashamayim, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. So 3 interesting footnotes now. 11. Number 1, the beginning of 11. So number 1, if you do have a bad dream, it's not an obligation to fast. It's only a reshus if you want to. And you only say anenu if you are makabel a fast, generally speaking, on the mincha before. Because of Ramallah, come on, but on Tanis Chalim you still say anenu, even though you weren't makabel it on the day before. Because obviously you had the dream in the night, and therefore you didn't know about this yesterday at mincha time. Therefore, and therefore, even though you weren't makabel the tanis beforehand, you still say anenu on the mincha time. And then he says, "V'atovs chaloimos hamavuas b'shulchan aruch le'el kosav Mishnah Berurah sham shemutar la'asos b'Shabbos." Hatovas chaloim means it's in the back of your art scroll that or wherever it is, that you go up to 3 people after you've had a bad dream, and you can tell them, I had a bad dream, and they say mutavloch, or whatever. They interpret it in a positive way. That you can do on Shabbos as well. Mutar la'asos b'Shabbos. And then what about Yom Tov? So he says, "Af hoisif b'shem ali rabba shekashei sad lahakel efshel lahakel gam b'Yom Tov yosim b'Shabbos." Because Yom Tov there's more of an insight of simchas Yom Tov and onik, and therefore that's even more strict than Shabbos. 12 is interesting. V'im eina choyze b'tshuva. A person he said he should spend his day with Torah and Tefillah and not just fasting, because the main choyze b'tshuva, if the guy doesn't introspect and do tshuva, kosav le'el b'shem sefer chasidim she'ein esana hatanis ma'ila. The fasting is not going to help you. The ikar is the tshuva, not the fasting. The chmei carbon she'ein ma'il b'li tshuva. So it's the same as a carbon without tshuva. The carbon is not going to help just on its own. You need to do the tshuva with it. Now, 14 is interesting and important. Umitam zeh, because of this is going on the Mishnah Berurah, which says that if a person was thinking about crazy things during the day and he had a dream somehow related to that, then he shouldn't worry about it. That's not a need for a tanis chaloim. And he says in 14, Umitam zeh, noag hachazon ish shelo lotzum al chalomos roim. The minhag of the Chazon Ish was not to fast on bad dreams. V'gamlo lehetivas hachalomos, nor would he do hatovas chaloim in the morning. V'aflo loimais ribono shel olam shetignu loimer b'shas birchas kahanim al rias chalom she'inedeh imu chalom tov or ra. nor would he say the Rebbeinu Shalom when the Kohanim were duchening on Yom Tov, because we don't know how to interpret the dream if it's Tov or Ra, and therefore he just didn't do any of that. Why? He held, the Chazon Ish held, the dreams in our times, Einon Marim Shum Dava. They don't tell us anything. They're just sort of it's a consequence of your thought process, and therefore it's not really a simon min hashamayim about anything. But when people would come to the Chazon Ish and they'd ask eitzes about bad dreams, he would tell them, say the Rebbeinu Shalom when he comes to duchening, and Eretz Yisrael they duchen every day, so it's easier to do it. But say the Rebbeinu Shalom when when the Kohanim are duchening. But for himself, he wasn't Gerisi really. It's interesting. The Briskerov, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that was, and he would dream a lot, and he would regularly do Hatovas Chalaim. I don't think about fasting, but he would do Hatovas Chalaim in the morning, which is you find in your regular Siddur. Okay, let's finish off. B'yom Rishon. So you fast twice. You fast on the day itself when you wake up on Shabbos, and then you fast on Sunday to avert to the fact that you didn't enjoy Onik Shabbos on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotzen Ches, V'im b'yom Rishon hutanis chayva. If on that Sunday it happens to be a fast day, going Yuzayim b'tamuz v'chadoymeh, v'yafilu tanis yachid shenag b'chayva. You had a minhag to fast on the first day of Slichas. That's not, you can't double up. So then you got to fast Shabbos, you got to fast Sunday because it's a Tanis, and then you got to find another day to fast because you fasted on Shabbos. Because you're fasting anyway. However, that it does work. That you should just think that this should also be a kapara for the fact that I fasted on Shabbos. And for someone who finds it difficult to fast, which I think is most people, they can certainly be mekel, and they can double up to fast for the chaloim, because you fasted on Shabbos, and for the fast that happens to be on that Sunday. Or Chanukah, dafka elu hayom shemedina also lisanas bahem. So that dafka these days. Avalim yom rishon hu yom she'isa tanis ein el minhag, k'goyin yomi denisan, oy sivan, oy isruchag, oy ben yom kippurim nesukos, v'chen ki agav neyochel lisanas bahem tanis latanisoi. Then you can fast on these days the tanis for your tanis. And if you had a bad dream on the night before one of these days, then you don't have to make up for that tanis if you fasted on that day. If you fasted on one of those days, then you do need to make up for it, because you shouldn't be fasting on Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, Purim, etc. Okay, Rosh Chodesh, Sif Kotten Yud. By the way, that's also the chassan. A chassan, generally speaking, they like scheduling a chasna on Rosh Chodesh for lots of reasons. One of them is that the chassan doesn't actually have to fast, and the kala. But the exception is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. For this reason, Mishum Shu Tanis Sadikim, because Rosh Chodesh Nisan is called Tanis Sadikim. That's Ayin Siman Tov Kuf Pei. Mishum will get that. But Tisef Shabbos Chelik Olav, Do'akos V'Magen Avram Shem Lekam Misha in Rogel is Tanis Sadikim Ve'erele Ezet Tzorach Chas V'Shalom Al Yisana, but you shouldn't fast on that day. Okay. Now, so what happens if that Sunday is a Chanukah or Rosh Chodesh or something? Then he should push off the Tanis, the second Tanis, to compensate for the fact that he didn't eat on Shabbos. You try and do it as quickly as you can, and don't wait too long. So on Shabbos Mincha you have a shuf in the afternoon, you don't say Aneinu on Shabbos Mincha. If you had a bad dream and then you woke up, in the middle of the night, don't drink already from then. Only the rest of the day. And therefore, if you have a bad dream in the night, if you want to have a drink before then, that's okay. Amazing. Even though you already had Shlal Shudas, then you have a shluf, you've still got to do Tanis Chaloim. And in Kain, because you could eat and you've chosen not to because you want to have a chaloim, you want to have a tanis. Amazing. So you've had Shalosh Shudas, let's say at lunchtime, you had Kiddush early, and then you had Shalosh Shudas, then you have a Shluf, you have a bad dream, and for that last hour of Shabbos, you want to not eat because it's Tanis Chaloim, you've still got to fast on Sunday to make up for the fact that you didn't eat in that hour of Shabbos. Okay, to be continued tomorrow, B'Shem.